It was quite literally just around this time in 2015 that I did my first audio interface reviews for the FocusRite Scarlett 2i2 and the FocusRite iTrack Solo. The channel has come a long way since then, but I still enjoy and use both of these interfaces today. Well, now it's time to look at the bigger brother to the 2i2, the FocusRite Scarlett 2i4 USB audio interface. Costing around $200, the FocusRite Scarlett 2i4 is a USB audio interface with 2 line or instrument inputs and up to 4 high-quality outputs. There are a lot of features here that would be great for musicians, but I will be covering this from the perspective of a voiceover artist. I can speak briefly on some of the more music-oriented aspects, but I cannot provide any useful direct feedback or tests. Taking a physical tour, we have a large Scarlett box. It's housed in an anodized aluminum case, which looks great and stays durable, but makes some awful noises if you touch anything else metal to it with a grinding sound that I never ever want to hear again. The subtle brushed aluminum look with a minimalistic Focusrite logo on the top looks great. On the bottom, you have 4 nice rubber feet, which keep the interface up off the ground and keep it from sliding around. Over on the front input panel, we have a lot compared to the 2i2. To start, we have 2 line and microphone inputs. This is a convenient design with an XLR connection and the line in port inside the center of the XLR port. This way you have the option of hooking up both without taking up too much space. For each input, you have a gain knob, a line or instrument switch, and a pad button. The pad button reduces input sensitivity by 10 dB for very hot inputs. These inputs have Focusrite's award-winning preamps in them, the same as the Scarlett 2i2. They are very clean, but I find for my microphones that once you start getting past 50% gain or so, for microphones at least, unnecessary noise is introduced. Much less than my Behringer mixer by a long shot, but still some. To mitigate this, I use the CloudLifter CL1 Pre-Amp. Past that, you have the 48-volt phantom power button, which lights up red when phantom power is on, and a MIDI and a USB activity light. This last section is where things get fun. So you have a 1/4 inch headphone output and a headphone volume knob. But then you have so much more. As with previous interfaces, you have control over the direct monitor interaction with your headphones. But instead of just being on or off, you have a dial which allows you to blend your monitoring of your inputs and playback via USB or MIDI. That way you can adjust it to only hear the inputs or only hear what's playing back through the device, or a blend of both. And this is really cool. You also have a switch to affect whether your direct monitoring is in stereo, with left and right channels separated per input, or mono, where everything is mixed between and balanced between both sides of your monitors. Next, you have a monitor volume knob. This affects the balanced 1/4 inch outputs on the back, as well as the unbalanced RCA outputs labeled 1 and 2, but we'll touch on those in a moment. Lastly, there's a switch to control which set of outputs your headphones monitoring is based on. You can choose either 1 through 2, which is the balanced 1/4 inch and number 1 and 2 RCA on the back, whose volume is controlled by that monitor volume knob, or choose 3 and 4, which is the unbalanced RCA outputs labeled 3 and 4 that stay at a constant fixed volume. The sound being outputted is the same sound, but volume levels differ. If you choose 1 through 2, you have both the big monitor knob and your headphone volume knob that can affect sound levels within your headphones, whereas if you choose 3 through 4, only the headphone volume knob affects what you hear in the headphones. That was a lot. This is one complicated interface, but I love all the options that's available, and it makes for one very flexible interface, almost like a mixer itself. Now that we've had a breather, let's tackle the rear I/O. On the back, we have a Kensington lock, the USB 2.0 A to B connection, a MIDI in and out. Yes, this interface can actually act as a MIDI interface for your computer and DAW software, eliminating the need for an internal or separate MIDI card or interface. So that's pretty cool. And then you have your other outputs. For this, you have 4 unbalanced RCA outputs labeled 1 through 4 and 2 1/4 inch balanced outputs. 1 and 2 of the RCA outputs and the 2 1/4 inch outputs go together as grouping 1 through 2 for the headphone switch on the front and are controlled via the monitor volume knob. 3 through 4 of the RCA outputs are a fixed, unbalanced signal at all times. Phew, that is a lot of I/O. This interface can do a ton. As I said, I'm not a musician, but I do remember that back in my day, having a MIDI card being a big deal, so it's pretty neat that this device can serve as an interface for both MIDI and micro-instrument analog audio. Maybe that's just me. Hooking it up is fairly straightforward. Plug in the USB 2.0 connector to your PC and hook up your inputs. Make sure you plug it in directly into a USB port on your computer, not a hub, as it requires a lot of bandwidth for their audio, and their drivers still seem to have some stalling issues. Also, I recommend avoiding USB 3.0 ports for this. While it still works fine in USB 3.0 for direct ASIO interaction via something like Adobe Audition, normal interaction with third-party software such as OBS, Skype, Discord, Elgato game capture software, etc. does not seem to work at all if it's connected to a USB 3.0 port. This is really weird, and I hope we get some new drivers soon, as it's been quite a while. Make sure your line instrument switch is set correctly. Personally, I did not notice any difference while recording with my XLR microphones in the line mode or the instrument mode. I've read online that the interface automatically detects any XLR inputs as a microphone and sets the correct low impedance for the mic. This is potentially true. However, for instrument usage, depending on your setup running to the interface, you'll want to do some test recordings to see which is best for you, as I've seen some have clipping issues with hot guitar signals and instrument mode. Again, not something I can really test or speak on. If your signal is too hot in general on the 2i4, then you can utilize the pad buttons to lower input sensitivity by 10 dB. Thankfully, this applies to the inputs individually. Their 48-volt phantom power works great and doesn't introduce any additional noise into the system. Since I use these interfaces as DACs when the drivers are behaving, having the blend knob to blend my inputs and playback is really quite nice. When I'm recording, I can lean towards the mic and hear myself better, and when I'm jamming out to music, I can completely mute out the microphone input. I really appreciate this feature. Overall, I'm still in love with Focusrite interfaces on the whole. This provides a super clean audio signal over USB and at high resolutions, while providing mixer-like features. I still have trouble with their drivers in my system, where if I use it while heavily taxing my system with other processes, such as video gaming, editing, etc., the driver stalls and I lose my interface as a connection entirely. But sadly, this appears to be a very rare issue and one somewhat unique to my PC setup. More reason to build a higher-end PC when I can afford it, I guess. So this is my review of the FocusRite Scarlett 2i4 USB audio interface. It is a badass and flexible interface that is definitely well suited to be the 2i2's big brother. Links to my other interface reviews will be in the description below. Thanks for watching. Smash the like button if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out my awesome tech videos on the channel as well. And otherwise, I'll catch you in the next video.